A este tercer y último día del Cuarto Congreso Internacional de Nuevas Tecnologías y Patrimonio Cultural. La ponencia magistral de esta mañana la dará el doctor Michel. Michel él mismo nos dirá parte de su carrera, pero haciendo una supersíntesis, yo diría que es la cabeza de la arqueología subacuática en Francia, lo cual quiere decir desde hace muchos años también. Y Michel, como Javier, como yo, estuvimos trabajando muy fuerte en la UNESCO durante la elaboración del texto de la Convención 2001 sobre la protección del patrimonio cultural subacuático, y después ha sido miembro desde la fundación del Comité Científico y Técnico de la propia Convención para la protección del patrimonio cultural subacuático. Y pues estamos muy honrados de que esté aquí en México con nosotros. Él va a presentar esta ponencia. En inglés tiene un sentido que es Rising to the Challenge of Deep Sea Waters, REX. En español sería una traducción que ahorita me estaba explicando Rick, rompe un poquito el sentido, pero es como enfrentando el reto de alcanzar los naufragios a grandes profundidades. Los dejo con el doctor Lourdes y muchas gracias, Michel.
Gracias, Pilar. Buenos días a todos. Primero, gustaría disculparme, no hablo español, aunque lo entiendo un poco, y por esta razón haré mi presentación en inglés. Secondly, I would like to thank the organizers and in particular Marina, who helped me a lot, and my dear friend Helena Barbara Meinike, who gave my name, for inviting me here today to this international symposium. As Pilar has just said, my name is Michel Lourdes. I have been an underwater archaeologist for 37 years, and for the last 11 years I have been running France's Underwater Archaeology Research Department, or DRASSM for short. That said, I would like to speak to you today about the determination and enthusiasm of French archaeologists to develop techniques for working on deep water wrecks. While the excavation of the ancient shipwreck of Mahdia in Tunisia by the French archaeologist Alfred Merlin played a key role in raising awareness in early 20th century France of the importance of underwater cultural heritage, it was the creation of the aqualung by Jacques-Yves Cousteau and Émile Gagnan in 1943, which enabled the field of underwater archaeology to really develop in our country. Providing easy access to the silent world, this invention of a self-contained underwater breathing apparatus led to the discovery of a large number of wrecks along the Mediterranean coast of France and Italy. And unsurprisingly, by the 1950s, a number of divers and archaeologists were developing an interest in submerged heritage. The aqualung was a game changer in the middle of the 20th century. Salvage work conducted by the Italian Nino Lambolia on the Albenga wreck in 1950 was the last archaeological operation to use helmet divers, while works on the ancient wrecks of Grand Congloué in the Bay of Marseille between 1952 and 1957 were to be the first true underwater archaeological excavations in the world. For the Bay of Marseille project, archaeologist Fernand Benoit directed operations throughout, but because of a lack of suitable training, he didn't actually dive on the site. The excavations were instead undertaken by Cousteau's dive team. Faced with a number of scientific and technical problems, it soon became clear that they needed a specialist in the field to monitor the work directly. This meant that archaeologists had to learn to dive. So, in 1966, André Malraux, famous French writer and then French Minister of Culture, set up DRASSM. In honor of Benoit and Cousteau's experiences in the Mediterranean, this new research center was duly established in Marseille and remains there to this day. The creation of DRASSM was an ambitious project. The department was given the responsibility of managing, developing, and protecting all submerged heritage in the domaine public maritime, a legally defined area which stretches from the foreshore to the outer limit of territorial waters. In practical terms, this means that DRASSM's current remit includes not only the Mediterranean, but also all French territorial waters around the world. Given that France possesses the second largest exclusive economic zone in the world, amounting to 11 million square kilometers, DRASSM has to deal with cultural objects that lie in a challenging variety of locations, from a few meters down to the greatest depths known to man. For the first 15 years of DRASSM, French archaeologists concentrated on adapting excavation methods, developing logistical solutions, and determining the most suitable approach to studying underwater archaeological artifacts. Thanks to SCUBA, the department surveyed and studied nearly 1,500 wrecks along the French coast in the period 1966 to 1980. Unfortunately, research was often disadvantaged by looting, which since the 1950s had been responsible for the removal of important historical items from many of these archaeological sites. In contrast to this looting, which in general affected wrecks lying in waters up to 60 meters deep, a promising line of research was opening up in many parts of the world with the discovery during industrial works and electronic surveying of deep-water wrecks. Consequently, in the 1980s, DRASSM started working with industry and research organizations with a view to surveying wrecks lying at great depths. The first of these operations took place off Toulon in the south of France in 1980 on the Benafor wreck. Lying at a depth of 328 meters, this wreck enjoyed the honor of being the subject of the first deep-water excavations. Sorry. Initial results were promising, and DRASSM has continued to research deep-water wrecks ever since. Sorry. I think I have to escape. So I think I have to close it before opening up again, because I don't know why, but there is trouble on one video. I don't know why. It stops, I don't know why. It's probably due to the fact that I want to see you a few videos, but that's very heavy files. No. I hope that it works. Yeah. The scientific motivations behind DRASSM, enduring interest for the deep, spring from one simple, obvious fact. Whatever the circumstances of the catastrophe, whether a storm, a battle, or an overloaded hold, ships lost in deep water are by far the best preserved. Once the chaos of the sinking has passed, the sheer depth of her resting place keeps any ship out of the reach of human hands. It also saves her from the daily onslaught of the swell, the oxidation generated by backwash, and the voracious appetite of the wood-eating mollusk Teredo navalis, or devil shipworm. What we didn't know in 1980, but what it's now only too clear to us, was how the inventory, if not the study, of deepwater heritage was soon going to be of the greatest strategic importance. These wrecks, whose great depths has for so long kept them away from human activity, are today directly under threat from advances in scuba technology, such as the development of rebreathers, but also from progress in offshore exploration, the rise of treasure hunters, and the dwindling of fish stocks, which is pushing fishing fleets further from the shore into waters they once ignored. This means that deepwater wrecks are now under threat from deterioration and destruction like never before. In the previous 10 years, the pillage and the destruction of deepwater wrecks have become so widespread that we cannot expect this underwater heritage to survive unscathed. When one considers the potential for scientific information locked within these deepwater wrecks, it becomes patently obvious that we need to protect them and study them. Using the submersible Sayana on the early excavation of the Benafor wreck made it abundantly clear to us back in 1980 the pressing need for developing archaeological methods specific to the deep. So, in 1990, on the Saint Dorothea, the wreck of a 17th century merchant ship from Denmark, which lies in the roads of Villefranche-sur-Mer of the south coast of France, we began the research and development necessary to achieve this goal. DRASSM continued throughout the 1990s to test new methods and explore the intricacies of using mechanical excavating tools, sometimes on deep-sea wrecks, but also on remains lying in shallower and therefore more accessible waters. In 1993 and 1995, we carried out much work in the Mediterranean on wrecks situated at 660 and 450 meters below sea level, respectively. For this, we use Ifremer's submersibles and Nautil, which the French Oceanography Institute has developed to survey the deep ocean, as well as the sunken remains of shipping, such as that world-famous wreck, the Titanic. It soon became clear that one of the most challenging problems facing archaeologists working in this domain would be the rising of financial backing which to pay for the hire of underwater vehicles suitable for such great depths. Additionally, we were surprised to discover that using third-party equipment in conjunction with scientists who were new to the field of archaeology brought with it its own set of intrinsic problems. Although institutions, industrialists, and armies were happy to help us when they could by making their equipment available, it soon became apparent that they had their own ideas on how operations should be conducted, and we would often find ourselves relegated to the sidelines despite its buying our show. Indeed, the owners of the equipment, robotic or otherwise, would retain direct control over them, and all the archaeologists were invited to do was give an opinion. So we were not so lucky to work with them, but I must not be too hard on these companies and organizations with which we worked in the 1990s, because they did help us develop special and innovative methods, such as using imaging and photogrammetry to build a representation of what we were finding on the seabed. When in 1997 and 1998, I was lucky enough to be given the chance of directing the excavation of a 15th century wreck of the coast of Brunei in the South China Sea. I saw it as an opportunity to prove the substance of our previous experiment. On a wreck lying at a depth exceeding 60 meters, in water laden with floating particles, you cannot see a thing. Nevertheless, within 6 months, we, a team of 170 archaeologists and divers, had comprehensively excavated the wreck using robotic devices and other underwater vehicles that were directly under our control. The Brunei excavation surely continues to be the most, or one of the most extensive deepwater study of its kind. We were overwhelmed by the results, in particular when compared to our budgetary constraints. And we entered the 21st century with renewed enthusiasm for the future of deepwater archaeology. In 2002, we were provided with an opportunity to hone our skills with the excavations of the Mediterranean wreck, the Grand Ribot F. Incidentally, it was also the last job we did without having full control over the robotic devices involved. A goal of mine has been for many years to train DRASSM archaeologists to deploy the underwater vehicles at their disposal without recourse to third-party skills or knowledge. This was a key consideration in the preliminary discussions held in 2006 to determine the specifications of a brand new underwater archaeological research ship that would replace our faithful but increasingly redundant L'Archéonaute, which was launched in 1966. 37 meters long and 9 meters in the beam, the 300 tons André Malraux was launched on the 24th of January 2012. Like any hydrographic vessel, she carried a vast array of equipment and enjoyed state-of-the-art features such as diesel electric propulsion and dynamic positioning. Since her launch, she was regularly been deploying heavy underwater vehicles in the field, the principal purpose for which she was built. Many prestigious organizations such as the Midco Research Company and the Woodsole Oceanographic Institute have joined us aboard to carry out deepwater works and surveys. They brought with them their own AUVs, ROVs, and submarines of various sizes and purposes. But commissioning the André Malraux is not the whole story of our endeavors to develop and trial devices for using, surveying, and excavating artifacts preserved in the deep. Indeed, we have earmarked an authentic archaeological site in the south of France for this very purpose. The site features a French naval vessel which sank off Toulon in 1664, called the Lune, La Luna. The wreck lies 19 meters down, and being extremely well preserved is ideal for our needs. Just like John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who in 1962 in Houston, Texas, declared, "We chose to go to the moon." In this decade, we decided to give ourselves 10 years to develop methods and machines for excavating deepwater wrecks like the Lune, which, of course, is the French word for moon. We aim to study them with as much scientific rectitude as can be afforded to shallow water sites. To add a bit of background, just a few words, the Lune was built over 3 years, from 1639, had 2 decks and carried 54 guns. On 6 November 1664, she set out from Toulon during a ferocious storm, and 5 nautical miles south of the coast soon foundered. Her sinking was so sudden that the few witnesses to the tragedy reported that she sank like a block of marble. Only a handful of the 800 aboard survived, probably no more than 40 people. For the following 3 centuries, the stories of the Lune would be forgotten until in May 1993, when her remains were brought to light by the Nautil, ephemeral underwater exploration vehicle, which came across here quite by accident. DRASSM soon surveyed the whole 2-decker in her final resting place of the port of Carqueiranne and produced a detailed plan of the site. With the survey complete, it was decided that the great depths and the remarkable preservation of the wreck were 2 very good reasons for holding the site in reserve until such time as suitable technology and techniques become available for its comprehensive excavation and study. With 20 years of experience in developing and testing innovative methods for excavating deep-sea wrecks under our belt, we, archaeologists at DRASSM, started planning works on the Lune in 2010, and 2 survey campaigns followed in 2012 and 2013. During the course of these 2 operations, we came up with new ways of working underwater. Unlike industrial or military operators who dislike deploying robots simultaneously, we undertook numerous operations on the seabed involving several machines working side by side, for the simple reasons that, in our view, the methodical study of a deep-water wreck cannot be achieved by using just one device at a time. Consequently, in 2012 and 2013 alone, we tested a dozen robotic devices. We also experimented several AUVs and sonar profiling systems. In 2013, we tested several video and still shot cameras and vastly improved the systems used for cleaning away the sediment that usually covers wreck site. For this operation, we wanted to be able to carry out briefings and test runs on a virtual representation of the Lune to reduce to a minimum the potential for errors. Girona University in Spain, French company Dassault Systèmes, and numerous startups collaborated with us to develop 3-dimensional models and computer graphics for the dig. And thanks to their input, we were able to create a 3D replica of the site that, in conjunction with a virtual reality headset, could be explored whenever needed. The model was continuously updated as work progressed, so we could accurately monitor what was happening on the seabed. When it came to rehearsing delicate archaeological operations, the 3D replica combined with a simulator provided an experience very similar to the actual conditions on the wreck site. All in all, applying image processing to the problem of viewing archaeological sites has been relatively simple and extremely successful. As for physical intervention on deep-water sites, standard robotic equipment is unsurprisingly designed for industrial or military purposes and, for the most part, ill-suited to specialist archaeologists wishing to deploy it in the water. Consequently, a large part of the work undertaken on the test side of the Lune has been devoted to the question of recovering artifacts, an issue which remains one of our biggest challenges. Hydraulic arms, which are a common feature of ROVs, are powerful but not particularly suitable for handling fragile objects because every attempt places the object at risk. Such suction cup devices like those used by the French Society Comex on the Grand Ribot F shipwreck in 1988 are still an interesting idea, but only work with objects that are hard enough to be held by their surface and sufficiently smooth for the suction to gain a hold. Many other tests were carried out at the time on sophisticated equipment such as the French Navy's nude suit, which was developed by Nuitco Research and used in 2012 on the site of the Lune. While it's very impressive, the nude suit still requires a human operator, so we have to face all the problems related to the presence of a human on board. Without doubt, during this exploratory period, one of the best results was obtained using the shower methods, which has been previously employed on the Mardi Gras site in the Gulf of Mexico in 2007, and in France, in Corsica, at a depth of 360 meters. This method is probably worth exploring because it's one of the best ways of recovering an object from underneath. In 2013, we performed tests with a hydraulic arm fitted to a crawler. Our aim was to try a device which could raise heavy objects, but we had to abandon this idea because the crawlers turned out to be very clumsy and were quickly blinded by the sediments they disturbed as they moved. Spurred into action by the need to improve our inventory and better protect deepwater cultural heritage from the increasing threats of industrial activities and deep-sea trawling, DRASSM has also, since 2010, been carrying out regular test excavations on wrecks that are inaccessible to human divers. With this in mind, in 2012, we decided to set up a new research program called the Consortium to Operate ROVs for Sea Archaeology Implementation, Recovery and Experimentation, or CORSAIR for short. Its purpose is to encourage the development of robotic tools designed specifically for deepwater archaeology. A major feature of the program involves collaborating with international universities, big companies, and engineering schools to design and construct innovative submersibles which can carry out complete archaeological excavations at depths where direct human intervention will not be possible. We wanted to be very ambitious from the beginning, so we set 2020 as a deadline for producing and putting into service a machine capable of working at depths of 2,000 meters. Objective number one for such a machine was for it to be able to accomplish the work an archaeologist diving on an underwater site can do. We began by making a complete list of all the common tasks a researcher undertakes during an archaeological excavation and a list of all the tools required to carry them out. This detailed analysis of our profession provided us with the first draft of a catalog of the technical skills and abilities a robotic device must possess if it's to replace a human in a meaningful way. Next, we identified 3 requirements that, in our view, define underwater archaeology robotics. Our inspiration for this was the 3 laws of robotics invented in 1942 by the American sci-fi author Isaac Asimov. The first of these requirements was that the robot has to be as lightweight and as small as possible so that it could be easily deployed from a modestly sized vessel. Indeed, it's no secret that the vast majority of archaeological teams have limited budgets at their disposal and as a result usually work with low tonnage ships, mostly modified fishing boats and barges. So it was imperative for the robot to be suitably dimensioned for the kinds of crafts archaeology tend to use. The second requirement was, we believe, fundamental to the future of marine archaeology. Archaeologists must be able to pilot this robotic device themselves without having to take a long training course or specialize in the piloting of such machines. They should be able to learn within a matter of hours how to operate the robotic device so they can carry out the excavation work themselves, rather than, as it's so often the case, relaying instruction to a professional pilot who then does the work in the stead. In our experience, not only is the work completed more quickly and more efficiently when it's done by the archaeologist himself, it avoids that period of time taken to communicate information to the pilot and for the pilot then to then assimilate and act upon that information. Such delays, however short, can place an artifact in danger. The last of these essential requirements was that the archaeologist must be able to feel, through the intermediary of the robot, the object as if he or she were actually present, diving on the wreck in person. The archaeologists need to be able to detect immediately the nature of the object, what it is made of, and how resilient it is. Ideally, such a robot would be nothing less than the underwater projection of the archaeologist at a water's surface, and to such a degree that the human pilot would forget he is not actually on the seabed working on the site himself. With these fundamental requirements in place, only the general shape of the machine has yet to be decided. Some members of our team thought that it would be an interesting idea to build a robot whose physical characteristics would resemble those of various animals that inhabit the oceans. To this end, we approached researchers, both at home and abroad, who were working on robots that imitate fish, jellyfish, sea snakes, and crabs, such as the Crabsters, a six-legged robot developed in South Korea. Ultimately, none of the machines we looked at appeared suitable for our purposes, and we decided to abandon this avenue for the time being, although we are keeping an eye on developments. A few of us thought that the sphere shape was the most judicious choice because it would allow for the elimination of the usual blind spots associated with parallelepiped robotic devices, and cameras could be fitted in such a way as to provide a simultaneous 360-degree view. Other members of the team supported the idea that a humanoid form would be better, because we all know instinctively how to pilot a human body, to move it within a confined space, to place it at the right distance to grasp an object, and so on. Unable to settle the question, we decided to retain both designs, sphere and humanoid, and use them as working hypotheses. And by the end of this first stage of our study, which lasted about a year, we had drafted an extremely precise set of specifications which we subsequently decided to submit to specialists in robotic research. So,
We brought together France's best roboticists to show them our project and discuss whether it were possible to build a device that could satisfy all our requirements. By the end of our brainstorming session, we had concluded that the operational features of our future robot could be sorted into one or three more or less equal categories. A third of our technical specification presented little difficulty and could easily be satisfied using solutions that have already proved their worth. For another third, our robotic colleagues assured us that they could take inspiration from or adapt pre-existing robot technology to meet our expectations. But they were unanimous in thinking that such complex research would take a long time. As for the remaining third of our specification, each of our colleagues was of the opinion that robotic research would one day provide the answers, but for the time being, no suitable technical solution existed. Well, despite the difficulties, we decided to pursue our research program when in 2013, some French roboticists suggested we contact Oussama Khatib, a professor at the Stanford Robotic Laboratory, to whom we duly presented our project. Professor Khatib was already aware of our work, and he immediately spoke to us of a program he and his team were working on. Called Ocean One, his project was to create a human-looking robot capable of moving and undertaking complex tasks underwater, while providing its human pilot with the essential sensations of touch and three-dimensional sight, two senses that are incredibly important to archaeologists. Clearly, our projects occupy the same terrain, and at that initial meeting, our teams took the decision to collaborate. In the same period, we were joined by a few French research laboratories, in particular Montpellier's University's research laboratory concerned with IT, robotics, and microelectronics, or LIRM for short. I shall avoid describing in detail the extensive meetings and trials which went into ensuring that Ocean One satisfies the requirements we laid down for it in our specification. Nevertheless, I would like to point out that Ocean One first trial campaign took place in April 2016 on the site of the Lune, the 17th century shipwreck I spoke about earlier. Despite never having previously left its test tank at Stanford University in California, Ocean One was capable of working at a depth of 90 meters, collecting archaeological artifacts from the wreck and putting them in a case which had been placed nearby by another robot. This first operation allowed us to validate the various technological choices we have been exploring in the preceding 4 years and showed us that our systems enjoy a vast potential for improvement. Most importantly, it demonstrated that the research route we have chosen, that of building a humanoid as a veritable avatar of an underwater archaeologist, had infinite promise. In addition to Ocean One, I would like to mention some of the several robots that we have designed and built in cooperation with LIRM in the last 5 years to carry out very specific and diverse tasks, such as cleaning excavation sites or raising objects after having mapped and photographed them in the position they were found. The robots we have developed have the ability to grasp extremely fragile objects such as cracked glass bottles and place them in nearby collection cases to be hauled up to the base boat. Our latest prototype was tested in September 2016 on a wreck lying in 480 meters of water in the Mediterranean. Nicknamed Griffouble, Griff is French for claw or gara. It's designed to recover voluminous and heavy objects down to depths of 500 meters. Its flexible claw or grab adapts to the shape of the target, allowing it to handle fragile objects of up to 20 kilos. Like all our devices, it's fitted with powerful lighting and cameras. These enable us to monitor the excavation work it is undertaking, in particular when the vehicle positions itself above a collection case in order to deposit recovered objects. Also, if the need arises, Griffouble can be brought to the surface with an object held in this grab. The grab assembly itself is designed to work at depths of up to 2,000 meters, so we could fit it to another robot which has a greater diving range. Concurrently, we develop an ROV which can photograph and video wrecks to build a three-dimensional image that we can then study. To achieve this, we designed and had built special photo and video devices which are equipped with very powerful lighting of almost 900,000 lumens in order to work at depths of up to 2,000 meters. This allowed us to experiment and refine new techniques for studying deepwater wrecks, in particular photogrammetry. The rapid development of digital devices had allowed us to make tremendous progress in this respect. Software has become ever more efficient and effective compared, for example, PhotoModeler, which we were using back in the early 2000s, and PhotoScan, which is very popular today. As a result, over two campaigns in April 2015 and August 2016, DRASSM compiled a 3D image of the wreck of the Danton, a French battleship of 19,000 tons and 156 meters long, which foundered in 1917 and now lies 1,025 meters under the sea. Imaging was completed in a little over 25 hours of diving, of which 16 were actually spent on the wreck. From a total of 40,000 photos, we selected 25,000 to build the 3D reconstruction. We had two specific goals for this operation. Firstly, we wanted to raise awareness among the public of the vast undersea repository of heritage relating to the two world wars of the 20th century, and how it's under great threat because it's a source of portholes, chadburns, and other navigation instruments for marine antique dealers. And secondly, it was an opportunity to develop imaging techniques and methods that are suitable for depths of up to 2,000 meters. In the coming year, we will have completed the 3D reconstruction of the Danton's remains, and soon the public will be able to make a virtual tour of the wreck as if they were actually diving on a dreadnought dating from the First World War. In the same period, we made thousands of photogrammetric surveys on as many ancient wrecks at depths of between 100 and 500 meters. These various experimental phases enable us to improve considerably our techniques for capturing images, and equally as important, they allowed us to optimize our capacity for analyzing scientifically the data thus collected. Among this survey were those of the Capos Agro 2 wreck, which provided us with an initial insight into the ship's structural design, and the Aleria 1 wreck, which, thanks to the high quality of the camera used, allowed us to read the manufacturer's name on the back of an oil lamp, a piece of information that enabled us to date the wreckage with great precision. So, can we expect in the near future? Firstly, in association with a few research laboratories like the LIRM and various industrial partners, we set up a project called Sea Hand. These innovative research programs aims to develop an artificial hand and its associated command system for the specific purpose of recovering artifacts from marine environments. Initially, the researchers and engineers in charge of designing Sea Hand looked at the latest developments in robotics hands and optical devices in connection with numerous experimental applications. Without going into too much detail on the specification, I can say that Sea Hand must be able to function under electric power in the sea and under extreme pressure. Seize objects of the size ranging from a coin up to a dish, weighing up to 1 kilo in the water. Adapt to the shape of the targeted object without damaging it, and measure the force it employs so the surface operator can assess the nature of the object and the risk of breaking it during handling. In order to better understand the constraints of the human archaeologist, we recorded movements and gestures in the lab. We did this by fitting sensors to an operator's hand and arms, an archaeologist of course, and then using multiple cameras, filmed him while he simulated numerous ways of excavating and recovering archaeological objects. This technology, which has much in common with the motion capture technique used in animated films, allowed us to record movement in great detail, to model them, and as a result to reproduce them. Today, Sea Hand project has reached its midway point, and given the progress we have made, we can expect to be able to test our first marine manipulator at sea in the autumn of 2018. Subsequently, in 2019 or 2020, we should be in a position to install 2 manipulators developed under Sea Hand project and the humanoid Ocean One, the latest prototype having by then also considerably evolved as a result of feedback from our initial operations and the tank trials undertaken at Stanford University in September 2017. Indeed, a series of improvements is scheduled for Ocean One in the coming months. Also, in 2018, we envisage undertaking the next trial on a wide dating from the Roman period, probably 2nd century BC, lying in French waters at a depth of almost 400 meters. Given the healthy progress of our research in other areas, we can be certain that Ocean One's working environments in the 2020s will be significantly different. We are building a series of very specialist robots, all being prototypes, whose purpose will be to support Ocean One and facilitate its work on the seabed. One of these, Flipper, which we have already tested on various sites down to a depth of 100 meters, is designed to desilt wrecks, while other machines will be given the task of recovering the most fragile items in order to wrap them and place them in storage cases which, as the work progresses, are raised to the surface by other robots. It goes without saying that these machines of the future, like those that we have developed in the recent past, will continue to satisfy our basic requirements. That is to say, they can be piloted by the archaeologists themselves and deployed from low-tonnage vessels. While the number of deepwater wrecks on which we hope to work in the coming years continues to increase, for the simple reason that we discover and survey a dozen or so new wrecks situated between 200 and 1,200 meters every year. I am delighted to be able to say that our capacity for processing them is increasing too. For many decades, French underwater archaeologists have been dependent on the military or industrialists to provide the hardware for surveying wrecks at very great depths. But today, this is no longer the case. By developing our very own range of robotic devices, we have acquired the expertise necessary to design and build at greater speed and with greater ease robots that are more and more complex and more effective. Being often better protected and as a result containing more information than shallow water sites, deep water wrecks constitute, in our view, a fertile field for archaeological research that underwater archaeologists must, without fail, learn to survey and excavate. Is the wreck of the deep are the next frontier of underwater archaeology? And I think they are. You may be assured that in the not-too-distant future, archaeologists will have, at last, the technological passport that allows them to gain entry to a whole new realm of research. To conclude, and this will be my final words, I would simply like to quote the German writer and poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who had a passion for science. Dream. No small dreams, for they have no power to steal the hearts of men. Such words should, in my view, inspire us all. Thank you very much.
Ahora abrimos una sesión de preguntas y respuestas. ¿Alguien tiene una pregunta?
Gracias. Muy interesante. La pregunta que yo tengo es con respecto, y yo no soy experto en esto, por eso a lo mejor esto es algo que es obvio para ustedes, buzos, arqueólogos de submarinos, los artefactos recuperados a una profundidad tan grande, al momento de ser llevados a la superficie, ¿requieren de algún tratamiento, una curación especial desde el momento en que cambian su microambiente de profundidades de más de 500 metros a la superficie?
If I understand well, your question is about the problems that we can, which could be raised by the fact that the artifacts are raised from very deep waters, and the problem of the restoration and conservation. That's exactly the same. If you work in 100 meters or 2,000 meters, we have exactly the same process for the restoration, no much more problems. In fact, you know, the danger for the artifacts is the last 10 meters, because you arrive, you can't wrap the artifacts exactly how you can do yourself when you are diving on the site. Mm-hmm. So you have to prepare the cases in this case, because due to the wave or the swell at the surface, the artifacts can move. That's the only one danger that we identified. So we worked in order to prepare the cases to be sure that the object won't move, or sometimes we need to send a diver to wrap the artifacts at 10 or 15 meters of the surface to leave the artifacts themselves. So, but in any case, for the restoration, the process of degradation of the artifacts, it's exactly the same problems that we faced on shallow water sites.
Gracias.
Gracias. Sí, además de lo que acaba de decir el doctor Lug, yo completaría diciendo que él lo acaba de precisar, que no es la profundidad, sino también la importancia del cambio de ambiente, ¿sí? Los materiales arqueológicos, los que provienen de tierra se tratan también, pero los que provienen de medios acuáticos es obligatorio el tratamiento, si no a corto, mediano o largo plazo se destruyen, pero es por el cambio de medio ambiente.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? ¿Comentario? Muchas gracias.